whether it's correct or not. But hi. It's a difficult word, sorry if I pronounce it wrong. So yeah, today I'm going to present you a case study in bol.com, my previous company though, that we did, and we migrated from a Monolith to a Microfrontends. So I hope you will enjoy. Let me first introduce myself. Although Barry did a really good job, I will just briefly go through it. So I'm a freelance web developer, front-end engineer, and I'm also a Google developer expert in web technologies. And I'm originally from Turkey, and I'm living in the Netherlands for almost 4 years. And I have a master's degree in computer science, and I have studied electrical and electronics engineering in as a BS. Also at university, I was always interested in work I always had extraterrestrial projects. Like I built, for instance, solar-powered car and hydrogen-powered car when I was in university, and also I attended races. That's something that I'm really proud of. It was fun. So I'm also mentoring in Lonja Works. And I mentor women over there mainly, also sometimes men, but I'm giving priority to women. And it's, nice. I like it too. So you know, tango. I danced tango for a long time, and I did a lot of stuff. I also give lectures or organize international events, and I did a lot of things, performances, and also attended several marathons and such. I was really active, and then, I had a son. Now I can't dance much anymore, but it's still fun. Actually, they're supposed to be here, but he's sleeping right now. Maybe they will join in a couple of minutes. And then we are doing some outside activities together. So what I do at bol.com. First, let me ask you, have anyone heard of bol.com before? No? Okay. It's like Allegro. I think you have this website, a web shop. So it's a web shop. It has its own. It's the biggest web shop in the Netherlands and Belgium. It has its own. It has its own warehouses. It sells their own products, but also allows other sellers to sell their own products too. So it's a web shop and also a platform. Also similar to Amazon, maybe you also know. This is what I do. And I am specialized, especially working on these seller pages, so that when you log in, you handle your sales or orders or returns. And so maybe I make a screenshot. Let me show you, for instance. Say I logged in, and then I see this page. It's the dashboard. I go to the URL, to assortment, and the product catalog that I have, and then I can select some items from here, for instance, or put some filters. And then, for instance, I want to have those items to be returned from the warehouse of bol.com to my own, to the address that I want to go. So I selected them, and it's all responsive. Because the old version wasn't responsive. I will tell you why. And we are going, and I'm claiming the address. And then I confirm it, and then send really and then, that's it. We did it, it's the beginning. So this is, for instance, it looks like one page, but it has, we are also actually going through a different 2-3 projects already under the hood. I will tell you the details. And I said maybe I give you a bit of detail. Bol.com, it sells their own products, and until a couple of years, it was getting its main profit from their own products. But lately, the the sellers are started to bring way more income than its own product. So that's why it wasn't a responsive page at all. It was like a project, not had that many developers, but now they have more developers. They decided to invest more on it, and now we are going through this phase with bol.com. So it's a monolith, and it always becomes a mess after years. So it's time to refactor and go for a change. So yeah, the main focus was on web shop, but now the sellers are more important, or yeah, also important. So yeah, when I first started, it was like monolith like this. It was huge and not easy to work with several people within the company. And yeah, in the company there are 300 developers, by the way, and for the sellers, I think close to 1/3 of them, or maybe half of them, are working on this. And there are a lot of teams, several developers working on one repository, and it's not easy. Also, bol.com has microservices, using microservice architecture too. So we don't have like monolith backend, but several web services, microservices. The architecture for the seller dashboard had Java in backend, and in the front end it was a mixture of Angular 1.x, backbone, and handlebars. It was mainly like that. And we had domains in the seller dashboard. Because we want to split this, we have to define the domains. For instance, if you can see, this is a URL, and this is a URL, this is a URL. It has different URLs in the browser. If it's a monolith, then, if it's a monolith, and it lives in the same repository or same server. But in microfrontend architecture, we are, all those URLs are going to live in different servers. So I will show in a minute. Let's continue. So yeah, for instance, all those domains are just flows, or domains are used to live in this big monolith, and they were connecting to those microservices, the downstreams, and collecting the data and showing it. And what was the pain points? It was so hard to work in such an environment because the deployment is really problematic. You deploy something, and then there's a lot of failure of codes and tests, I mean. And it's not easy to do code reuse, because in bol.com we have 4 different platforms. For instance, we have this seller dashboard for third-party sellers, and we have a different dashboard for the internal bol.com employees. So actually the functionality is the same, but it's so hard to reuse that code, and that was not really easy. And also you have this inertia. It's hard to adapt or implement or innovate on this setup. It's hard, and maintenance is hard, and people are not having this ownership, because I make a change to that piece of code, and someone else does that, also is responsible for that code too. Then if there's a problem, then who is going to take the ownership? Yeah, it's not really working for the company. So it was a time to change, and So what's the expectation? So we're going to go through a change, and what should we do? The teams should work, for instance, independent of each other, and the publishing code should be flawless, and being able to publish frequently it should be a feature. It should be easy. And we need to able to adapt and implement innovations easily, because there's always room for improvement, and it should be easy to do. And we should be able to use new technologies. And if you want to try something, it should be easy to do. And also, while going through this migration, we shouldn't affect the end users. We don't have the luxury to set seller dashboards down and then develop it, and then you can't do that. It doesn't work. So we had several domains which are using in a different URL, and it was like that before, as I showed this image before. So they all live in one monolith, and when you split it, for instance, I took the return domain out of this monolith. So before, the return URL was going to the monolith, but not going to the monolith anymore. It goes to another service, which has a front-end part and also back-end part. Actually, think of it like a component for your front-end. So you have a component, and it connects to a back-end, but if you have microservices and you need to collect data from several microservices, it doesn't work. You can't make a request, a REST call, for instance, to another URL than your own URL. You'll have problems. So you need this back-end just to aggregate data from the downstream. So this doesn't own any data. It doesn't have a server. Or it doesn't have a session. It doesn't knows about its own session as well. So it's just a dummy small application. So we put this out from the monolith, and it lives in its own server, its own repository, and there's a team for 5 people sized team, and which maintains this. So yeah. That was the idea, the main idea, and yeah, and it felt really, really good. I felt like this because, this is called. This has a name actually. They have. I heard several names. For instance, I heard the terminology BFF, backend for frontend, or microfrontends. Well, they are not exactly the same, but they have similar concepts inside. For instance, backend for frontend is a shim or a layer that organize your microservice architectures and coordinate with them easily with your downstreams. And also for microfrontend, it's also like technique or composition of strategies or recipes for building modern web apps and using different frameworks or different stacks. For instance, some part of the teams use Scala, or some use Golang, or some use Java or Kotlin, and it's easily maintainable because it all lives in different environments, so it's easy to innovate in this sense as a developer. So we had these examples of microfrontend. So each flow moved away and become its own project. And examples of them can be like this, like delivery services or warehouse management and such. So we started to take everything out. So the monolith, it's like diminishing slowly, and because each flow is going out and becoming a new application. And then this way we are able to migrate this way. So as I told earlier, it doesn't own data because the idea is to be as dummy as possible. They don't supposed to also communicate with each other because the idea is to grab the data from downstreams and then display it. It doesn't have any session or independent of each other, also reusable within different portals. So you can just take this dummy small web application and easily implement it in another portal too. And they live in different URLs, different servers, all different. So it's like, actually, when you go from one URL to another, it's like going from Google to Amazon. So it's totally different, but since you have some shared libraries and such, which I will show in a minute, it has this one feeling, one UX. Actually, when we had this monolith and when we first started this project, the first component was taken out of this monolith was single sign-on because you can't log in every time when you move from one URL to another. This, of course, as you might imagine, single sign-on didn't have any URL, so it's just a service. And whenever you go from whenever you bootstrap your code, it always checks the session and grabs it and then displays it, the relevant data of that user. So the key for this microservice is to give one feeling and also like smoothless user experience to the user. So what else? So you have different users. You can't have the menu, for instance, developed in this microservice. It should be shared. It should be also shared. Or it also depends on the session or the authority that you have, the rights you have for that user. So actually, we built this as a sort of component, a framework agnostic component. And whenever the user gets the session, there's a different service who grabs the menu for that specific user. And since we have shared libraries and the styling is defined already, we render it like this. So it's different for every user. So yeah, as we speak, we have more than 8 different teams, and it's growing, and who works in 6 different departments. So it's a huge building. So yeah, people even don't see each other. So there are more than 20 microfrontends already with this architecture, and it is deployed for several users and several groups, and it's really working better. And time to time we grab analytics from we are grabbing some user analytics, and we learn that the overall complaints are diminishing, and since the developers feel more ownership for their code, you can immediately see the effect. And yeah, we can, for instance, go to production like 5 times, 10 times, depending on what problem that you have. So it's really easy to go that way. Also, we run the regression tests. Everything is there. We are making the code ourselves. So we are sort of doing DevOps in not fully, but we have some DevOps responsibilities for that project. So it really works. But yeah, it's okay, it's a good practice, and it worked for us. But of course, it has some problems. Since you have several teams, and sometimes sitting even really different places, it's really hard to have the same look and feel. That's our goal, but still we might have some inconsistencies, and we are trying to move on it and work on it we are trying to develop our own design systems and lifestyle guides to have this look and feel there always. But it's a challenge. And yeah, the maintaining shared libraries is a problem. So because our companies might not see this as a value, because it's not really adding a business value directly, but it does serve as a business. Yeah, it does serve as a value indirectly, but sometimes it's hard to, for instance, convince your company to do that. We are getting there, but yeah, it's a problem. Or when single sign-on microservice was building, it took also a lot of time to make it work for every environment, every portal. It was a challenge for us. And also, yeah, there might be some problems in hardware, because there are lots of microfrontends with different URLs, different setups. So it was a challenge for our DevOps teams. But yeah, it's successful. It's working. But yeah, it was not the success in first take, because we tried another way of doing it, which I want to share right now. The first experiment that we did it was the supplier portal. It was the portal for our suppliers. There were no portal for that. It was a good practice to experiment this microfrontend architecture. This time we used Angular modules for every domain this time. So it was not really separate. It was living in again, they were living in the same different repositories, but in the end, in the browser, they were glued to each other. But yeah, it's a good idea, because then it's faster, because because in the previous, the way that we use right now, when you go from one URL to another, it means a full page load. But in this architecture, you're not doing that, because everything is there. You're just switching. You're just making a backend call, and then you grab the data and you render it. It's pretty quick. So it's think of this as one application, and this is a one application. Please don't understand. It doesn't mean that only this part is an application. I mean that these URLs are living in different applications, or this part or all the URLs in here are managed in another application. Also, yeah, this part. So it was like all Angular modules who were glued to each other on the front end. So we had a structure like this. So like application 1 bundle, 2 bundle, application 2 bundle, or and application 3 bundle, and they were glued to each other. So it was, we had our own bootstrapping code with Angular. So first of all, this is still in use. We didn't continue with that approach, but it still works. And what are the downs for it? It's hard to maintain. As you might imagine, if you change something, and it can break the code of the other one. So you need to work on it. It's not that easy. And you need to separate repositories, and you need to do a lot of maintenance. So one code, one change in one repository can affect you, so it's not nice. And third-party libraries updates are affecting the whole system. Say you updated one of your repositories, your dependencies, and that can affect, and you need to update everything. For instance, you have updated, say, Lodash, and you need to update everything. And it's not good, it's not a good experience, but it serves a better performance. And as a developer, we are able to use the modern technologies, so it also feels nice as a developer. Yeah. So we use TypeScript. We had a really nice talk about TypeScript this morning, so it really works, and we are able to define our interfaces or types. And with a good editor support, it's really good as a developer. For instance, this is an example of it. You have defining this observable type or your return type in here. So yeah, it works. Also in here, you have this, you can define your serializers and such, and it's really, nice to do. Or if you have forms, like again, if you're serializing this, you have this backend call, and then you're serializing it, and you can easily return the types, and it works. It's nice. And we are using Angular. It's component-based, and I like the way it's a framework, and it has this nice ecosystem. And I like the fact that the CLI works good, and dependency injection in unit tests is really smooth. I like to write tests in Angular ecosystem. And nice localization support or forms or validation. And we have, as I said, we have our shared libraries, and they all, again, live in different repositories, and we try to make it as generic as possible and reusable as possible. And to have less. Also, we have our own component library, but since it's not always, we don't want to stick to Angular still. We like to use Angular, but we don't want to stick to Angular. That's why we are also approaching the framework agnostic component library and style guide together. We are using Stencil.js, and we are creating them as web components, so that then it will be framework agnostic. Anyone can use any framework. And this will create more freedom for the teams. So to wrap up, it's good for large companies, I think, which has also microservice architecture in the backend, and then it's really wise to go with this approach. It really helps in since you have autonomous and independent teams, and you have this ownership, and it creates better results, and it's easy to adapt new ideas and new technologies. So I highly recommend if you have a large company, and you can just try to, it's a good approach in that sense. So that's it. Do you have any questions?
Okay, so I guess one of the drawbacks of this approach is that you may have to download or fetch some data multiple times, like for instance user data, or even like libraries, let's say Angular data and stuff like that. Is this just something that is unavoidable and just cost that has to be paid in order to create a maintainable application, or did you find some clever workarounds to maybe cache some of this data so it doesn't have to be refetched every time that you go from one part of the application to another?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, first of all, yeah, in the business side, business was okay with this load time, so it wasn't a problem. They were okay with they like the benefits more than this downside. But of course, we are caching to make it quicker each time. Yeah, it's just basic approaches. Yeah. So yeah, we do use caches. We are caching the images and such, and yeah.
Another question here.
Hi, very nice speech. I would like to ask for two questions. One, do you store, because I'm not sure I understand. One, do you store all your code in monorepo or separated repositories? And second, how you communicate between the Angular modules? Do you have any common, I don't know, storage or something like that?
Yes, they do. All these microfrontends live in different repositories, so they have their own backend, their own frontend, or testing environment, or tests, integration tests, or whatever. It's all in one different repository. But what's the second question for? How do you mean, like communication of Angular modules? How do you
Yes,
mean?
how they, because I understand that they are totally separated each other.
Yeah.
Yes, like a microservice. So how they communicate between each other?
Yeah, they don't communicate because they are separated in a way that they don't have to communicate with each other. Say you split the code because it's just one domain. You don't need any other data. Of course, we do sometimes communicate with other microfrontends, but it's not the best approach. The approach is so that it should be separated. So you need to connect to your downstreams and collect the data, and that's it. You're not supposed to. It's not the best practice. So, yeah.
Okay, so one more question. I don't know. I'm not sure if we make it on time. Okay.
We have
1 second, it's recorded.
Minutes. We have 2-3 minutes.
Thanks. Hi. Theoretically, it sounds great. However, if you could elaborate on the practical part, how did you manage that SPA that glues other microfrontends? How is it done?
Yeah, there is its own bootstrapping. So have you worked with Angular 1.x or?
No.
Yeah, there are some modules, and Angular takes these modules and looks like just builds them up, and then everyone.
Okay, so you've got an Angular app that is a wrapper around other Angular apps. Am I correct?
Yeah, and then you have bundles like this, different bundles for these Angular modules, and then this wrapper Angular just takes them up and then builds the application so that everyone in the application knows about those bundles.
Okay.
But yeah, this is one approach, but we didn't want to go forward with that approach. It works, but it caused some problems. But that's why that's the approach we didn't want to continue with.
Okay. Thank you.
1 minute left. Okay, there's a question.
Hi, I'm really interested how you managed to solve the single sign-on problem. Did you involve JSON Web Tokens? Do you share the token with between all the micro apps, or do you use something completely different? It's really puzzling for me how to do single sign-on in such a
we use web tokens. Web tokens, yeah. We use them. Yeah, and they have all different tokens for each repository.
Oh yeah, that was what I was wondering. Yeah.
So
interesting. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more.
Over there.
Stop. One more. Stop.
Big applause for the question.
Are the front applications communicating with each other in your more modern approach, not the Angular modules one? And why would you call it a microfrontend application and not separate applications for different business domains?
Can you say the first question again?
Are the applications, those modules, communicating with each other? As I understand, in the first approach they weren't.
Yeah.
In the second approach, are they communicating with each other? And why would you call it? If they are not communicating, then why are you using term micro services, microfrontends?
Yeah.
and not saying we have separate applications using common elements for different business domains.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's the terminology that is used widely. So yeah, that's why they for this approach they come up with this idea. Although we name it differently in our own company, but yeah, just to specify it in a way so that people will understand what to expect from this type of architecture. So it's the name of the architecture actually. So it's a different application for sure, and it has its own. Yeah. Okay. Let's continue. Maybe. You can find me and ask questions. Yeah.
Yes, of course. You have the opportunity to find. Please give her a great round of applause.
I was scared.
Fantastic. Nice job.
Yeah.
And you owe me a dance later, too.
Yeah, sure. Right now?
No, not now. Later. We're going to
Okay.
do it at the party because I'm embarrassed. I want to practice a little bit first with you. How's that?
Okay, fine. Yeah.
I love the term. You made me fall in love with the term microfrontends
Okay.
because last night you really explained it to me fairly well. And if you manage to explain it to me, that means for sure everyone understands it because I'm not the easiest student. Thank you very, very much once more,
Thank you. I
Yaprak.
appreciate it.
Fantastic
Yeah.
presentation. Bravo.